Well, we're really lucky today for the rest of the hour to have Dr. Harrison Schmitt, Jack Schmitt, American geologist, former NASA astronaut, university professor and former U.S. senator. And he also, of course, walked on the moon on Apollo 17. And don't worry, we're going to talk about that before he leaves us today. But the big crisis at hand is the hoax, the manufactured crisis of global warming. And I have Club of Rome documents, all that. We'll go over it with him, where they admit this is just their pretext to turn us into the Soviet Union and micromanage the entire carbon cycle. But I guess a lot of people out there aren't biologists or aren't geologists and don't understand this. But he's here with us today to go over the science of that, because he's bravely, because you get branded a heretic, come out against this hoax. And so, Dr. Schmitt, again, let's continue going into why you decided to go public and start talking about this whole carbon tax and the science behind supposed man-made global warming.
Well, the primary reason that I and thousands of other observers of nature, if you will, I'm a field geologist, have become more active is twofold. One is that we are concerned about the misuse of science, and particularly the misuse of modeling of a very complex system called climate that is so complex that it really can't be done. And in fact, there are many people who are experts in modeling, astrophysicists and others, that have said the same thing. Freeman Dyson, for example, that the climate system is just too complex to model, and when you get into it, you find that the many assumptions that are made in order to just make what they call the physics work are just invalid. And any tests that you make against those models, against reality, have so far indicated the models are wrong. And so many of us just feel that although they're called climate scientists, they're not using science in the right way, and particularly modeling science in the right way. Models are very helpful in providing insights, but you should not base predictions of the future on these extremely complex models that are filled with assumptions. So that, number one, we've been concerned about the misuse of science. But I think more fundamentally, this misuse of science has led to politicians and ideologues to try to gain control of the American economy, and indeed the global economy, by scaring people. Now, the science is quite clear that there has been, since 1660, about a half a degree warming every 100 years. That is a natural cycle that represents the Earth coming out of what was called the Little Ice Age, an extremely cold period for the Earth, back in the beginning about 1400. If you want to read some of the history of the American Revolutionary War, you will realize, like the book Sam Adams by McCullough, you realize how damn cold it was back then. And that was partly that we were just moving out of the Little Ice Age very slowly, and it was still very cold. And so the natural warming is clearly happening, but there is absolutely no evidence, no observational evidence whatsoever, that the increase in carbon dioxide that has been measured in the last 50 years has had anything to do with that. Primarily because the warming started before the Industrial Revolution ever began. Now, where is that carbon dioxide coming from? Well, it's probably coming mostly out of the oceans, because the oceans are getting warmer. There's a lag in that process of the oceans giving up carbon dioxide as they warm, but nevertheless, and it can be a lag of a few centuries, but nevertheless, that's probably where most of that rise in CO2 is coming from.
Well, we're talking to Harrison Schmitt, Dr. Harrison Schmitt, Jack Schmitt, one of the Apollo astronauts, walked to the moon, took the most famous photo, one of the most famous photos ever of the moon and the little blue marble out there. We're going to talk about that later, but you're a doctor in this. I'm just somebody who studies it and interviews scientists and people. But Al Gore got caught, according to all the ice core samples and people that I've interviewed and seen on television. He put the carbon dioxide going up with the warming, when really the carbon dioxide comes after the warming, as you just said. That's from all the governments, all the universities, all the ocean studies, ice cores, correct? So that's more cooking the books. And then they've also caught, some of the top global warming supporters accidentally, and I put that in quotes, having false data from their weather stations and buoys, jacking up numbers. So I just don't see how they say it's an open and shut case when the majority of scientists polled out there say that it's completely natural and that man-made global warming is a fraud.
Well, it is being used fraudulently. There's no question about it, and it's being used for political purposes. And hopefully, the American people have started to realize that. Certainly, there are surveys that indicate that the common sense of the American people on climate change is starting to take hold, as it apparently is on health care revisions and the so-called stimulus package, where there is a concerted effort in the new administration and the Congress that's supporting them, and the what one might call the state-run media to support them, to move this country in directions that increase government control of just about every major facet of our lives.
Absolutely. They wouldn't let anybody see 300 pages of the 1,300-page bill till right when they voted on it. Now we have it. Home inspections, federal power to kick you out of your house if they want, take over all the land. It allows 30-plus federal agencies to just levy taxes and fines outside Congress's power. It's kind of a letter of marque just being given to any agency or group to go out and piratically shake down the public.
Well, it's not encouraging. Liberty is definitely threatened under this current in this current political environment, and all of us who believe in liberty are going to have to begin to take steps to counter it. And it's encouraging to see the governors and the legislatures of a few states starting to push back in terms of gaining a founder's interpretation of the 10th Amendment, namely that amendment that leaves everything not enumerated in the Constitution to the authority of the private sector or the state. And so that is, I think, a very, very encouraging trend, and I certainly hope that they'll continue in that direction to at least try to put the brakes on the legal brakes, the constitutional brakes on what's happening.
Well, I think you're right. I mean, the polls show you're right, that people are finally, they've gone from 60+% a few years ago, believing man-made global warming was this big threat and we were all dead and carbon dioxide was deadly poison and would kill you in seconds, to now realizing that it is a fraud and a hoax and just a new tax. Now they've only got about 40% support, and that's imploding quickly. But it seems like the federal government, and as you said, the state-controlled media, the big corporate media, they want this new tax, they want this control, and they don't care. It looks like they're going to just ram it through, maybe.
Well, we'll see. There's a lot of resistance, there's pushback now, and the August recess should help us as the common sense of the American people is put forward to their representatives, and we'll just see how we come out of this particular period. You mentioned the corporate media. I would not necessarily blame it on it being corporate media. It's just media that's in the tank for this socialistic change in our political system, and it's because just about everybody in the media now, reporters, analysts, and otherwise, have come out of an elementary, secondary, and college education that has been dominated by people who have less respect for liberty than you and I.
Well, yes, sir. Again, we're talking to Apollo astronaut, Dr. Schmitt. My point was Rex Tillerson at ExxonMobil said, look, we've looked at this. This is just a tax on oil. this is a fraud. And then David Rockefeller, the majority owner at a board meeting, this was in the news, said, you're going to come out and say it's real. And so even Rex Tillerson came out and said, okay, it's real. So when you see the NFL and every other big organization pushing it, when the American Football League the National Football League is pushing it, we know the establishment's behind it. Are you saying that that's just the incredible peer pressure and hype? Or is some scientists are saying this is the new global religion? This is the new organizing force?